Hello again, and welcome to the 4th episode of Don't Mess with the Mommas. With our underlying theme, you are the protagonist, not the victim of your destiny. We are here today, Johnnie Mitchell and Arlaana Black, and we're going to be discussing a very different kind of topic today. Kind of creating something out of nothing. What does that mean? Well, life is always filled with so much magic. Even in the most difficult times, there's magic to be had or to experience. And Johnnie, I love how you always talk about being in sync with the universe. So how have you experienced being in sync with the universe in your life? Tell us a little bit about some magic in your life.
That is a magical question, Arlaana. My life has been mystical, and I contributed to being in sync with the universe. And so I guess to say that I understood that as I was growing up, I didn't, but now on reflection or looking back, and particularly I think it begins with the time when I got married.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have a social life, or we didn't have boyfriends and girlfriends as most people know about it. Like I said, where I was from, it was about, having sex so you wouldn't go crazy. And since I had missed that whole part,
Good thing.
and so here I was out in the world, I guess, crazy. I still had the hopes and wanted a child.
Yes.
I wanted a child. I was in graduate school, and we had to do a video. And they said, on this video, say what it is that's deep in your heart that you would like to have. And I can recall it was, I want a child.
Yes.
That was as impossible as me saying now, I want to be a billionaire.
Yes.
I had no idea where was this child going to come from. I knew I wanted to bring a child into a marriage, and I wanted the child's father to have a good education. So in the meantime, I started dating, and I was dating 2 different people at different times, but they didn't have college degrees. They were very nice, perfect in every other way, but I knew that was not. And so and as soon as I came to that decision, then I couldn't, what I guess you would call, string somebody along.
That's right.
So I would end the relationship. It's like, I really like you, but we go in different places or whatever.
Yes.
That's it. And then recently I told you the story just out of magical, since we're not saying it's magic. I end up with a husband who is very well educated, and I get my child who is going to take our family to the next height, which is still back to the dream of the Gullah Geechees, that the next generation will go further.
Explain that.
So my son right now, I'm happy to say, he is a fantastic attorney in the North, doing very well. And so I know that my grandchildren then, who I have to say is now actually studying at the Sorbonne in France,
Unbelievable. Wow.
and his father is going, and his sister are going to visit him, and they're going to travel all over the world while he's on break from the Sorbonne. So, would you say that's mystical?
I would say that's phenomenal, and I think that's filled with the magic of life for sure. Yes.
I would like to hear about yours. I think you have some things to reveal.
Okay. So it's interesting that you talked about having a child because that was the impossible dream of mine. I was a wild child and a wild adult and had many, many relationships and was engaged 3 times. In fact, I thought that I would spend my life in Africa because I was engaged to an African student who was studying to be a doctor. So I went to Africa to see if I can live there and just felt the culture was a little bit too unique for me. So I came back. And I guess it's okay to say, but somebody who has really mentored me in my Buddhist practice, who's an African-American woman, a wonderful, wonderful woman who was always told me like it is. She was very strict with me, even though I didn't always like hearing what she had to say. She had a lot of courage to tell me what I needed to hear. And at my wedding, because my parents were deceased, she gave me away. And it's very funny, but my last name is Black. And she said, well, she didn't marry a black man, but she's going to be called Black for the rest of her life. So that was kind of funny. Yeah. So anyway, so again, I was engaged 3 times, but never really could make a commitment. And here I was pushing 40, and I had an opportunity, and this is where magic really takes place, because I was living in a studio apartment in Manhattan, and then all of a sudden the management office called me and they said, oh, we have a 1-bedroom with a terrace for you. Would you be interested in it? Well, at that time I was really nervous about the idea of spending more money, especially because I really wasn't even working steadily. So I called one of our seniors in the practice, and she came over and she looked at the apartment and she said, oh, now you have lots of space for a husband and an infant. And I kind of looked at her askance, and I thought, what is she talking about? I'm not seeing anybody. I'm pushing 40. Well, anyway, wouldn't you know that I got the apartment, and 4 months later I met Chuck. We went through 2 years of very, very difficult divorce. He was previously married, but we got married on Valentine's Day, the day he proposed, which actually I broke up with him that day, and then he proposed and I accepted. But 2 years later, we got married. And then one day I was having, and here I am, already 40 years old, and we were having lunch with a friend, and I started feeling really sick. And I said, oh, no, my food sensitivities are kicking in. And I woke up one evening, and because I had open heart surgery when I was 30 years old, my husband thought I was having a stroke or a heart attack. So we called the ambulances, and at 4:30 in the morning I was hooked up, to all these heart monitors. And then this little intern comes in and says, well, ma'am, for what it's worth, all your tests came back negative, but congrats, you're pregnant. Which was such a shock because we weren't trying at all, and I was only married for about 8 months. So that was phenomenal. That was so beyond imagination. And then, of course, my son, being the person he is, determined that he was going to cause his mom 6 days of labor, which was so painful, and he was 2 weeks late. But he came out, even though my husband made beautiful hand calligraphy birth announcements that all said July, he happened to come out on August 2nd, 2 days before my husband's birthday. So there you have it. So that was some of the real magic. And, when I often think about plants because my fantasy, believe it or not, this sounds crazy, I've never grown anything. And I think farmers must be the magicians of the universe. I think that they're so amazing, the idea of growing something. So I often think about plants and how they struggle, and they never give up. They never give up. They struggle with the worst kind of, weather conditions sometimes, and they die off in the winter and they look like nothing's happening, and all of a sudden they spring back to life. So that seems so magical, and I think that's our lives. Our lives when it seems like there's absolute no possibility of breaking through something, we're able to manifest great change. So did you want to share?
Yes. And what it makes me think of and feel like, and will wait to hear what your response is, but mine is I always feel so grateful.
Yes.
Just so much gratitude, and for this life and how valuable it is, and how everybody has this value if you have life, and that no matter what the conditions are, that if we are grateful, then magic can happen.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so it just keeps coming. And each one of us is so unique. Everybody who has this life has it in a different way.
Yes.
And can have it revealed in a wonderful way. And so I think that's really the mission that you and I have, that sharing our life stories that is going to inspire or ignite some thought that every one of us is the protagonist of our life and not a victim. And we can decide what we want. And I look at it, I always call it the universe, that if we're in sync with the universe, then it happens. And I look at it like gravity. Before I knew what gravity was, if something falls, it always falls down. And so it's only later, as I become a practitioner of Buddhism, that I understand that I can use Nam-myoho Renge Kyo to help me stay in sync with the universe and manifest the life that I would like to live. But it was happening all along, but I didn't know what it was based on and how it was happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And what I do love is the sense of hope, always to have hope, no matter how dire the circumstances. And we have many historical figures that we can look back on, and they've really struggled so much, but they never gave in to despair and defeat, no matter what the conditions. And what place is worse than prison or being in a war, or just, not having enough food for your child to eat? How devastating. But there's always the potential for hope and for change, and not to live in the past, because the past is already gone, but to live from this moment on. And that's what, I really loved about my Buddhist practice, is that I can always, no matter what I did yesterday, if I did 100 great deeds or 100 negative deeds, I can always refresh my life from this moment on. And a great heroine of mine is Eleanor Roosevelt. And if you know anything about her life, she was really considered such an ugly duckling, and her parents never really gave her positive feedback at all. And of course, she went on to produce, to accomplish so many great things in this world. So if it's okay, I think we'll end for now, and we'll end with her wonderful quote, if that's...
Oh, that's wonderful. I think she was beautiful.
Yes, she was beautiful, beautiful. So she said, "Life is full of unexpected sufferings. Even so," she said, "if you can live through that, a difficult situation, you could live through anything. You gain strength, courage, and confidence with every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." And fear is what discourages so many of us. Fear of failure and fear of success. You are able to say to yourself, "I lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along." That's exactly right. Struggling against great difficulty enables us to develop ourselves tremendously. We can call forth and manifest those abilities lying dormant within us. Difficulty can be a source of dynamic growth and positive progress. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Our motto is, you are the protagonist, not the victim of your destiny. Just Google us at Don't Mess with the Mommas podcast. Mommas is spelled Mommas. You can also find us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. And don't forget to email us at mommas, mommas.podcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much.